Benny looks like any typical 25-year-old, studying hard, grabbing a coffee, and heading to class at the Hebrew University. But 5 years ago, Benny couldn't have imagined he'd go to college. Growing up in an extreme sect of Ultra Orthodox Judaism, where scripture and holy books were the only reading material allowed, secular education was forbidden.
All day focuses around studying. My whole life I studied. At age 5, I was already deep in the material.
Whether at school, synagogue, or home, Benny had everything he needed for an ultra-Orthodox life, but it was the outside world he felt he was missing out on.
The Haredi community is very closed. You don't see anyone different than yourself. I was very drawn to different types of people and meeting everyone around me.
Few in Benny's shoes experience life beyond the walls of their neighborhood. In most cases, exploring the outside world can result in a complete exile from the community, cut off from family, friends, and everything familiar. But still, rather than remain secluded, Benny followed his curiosity, choosing to start his life over almost entirely at 20 years old and without a clue as to what's next.
You don't know anything. You pack your bag, put in what you have, and leave without really knowing where to go. It sounds really bizarre, but you just pick up your backpack and go.
Benny's journey took him from the halls of his yeshiva, or Jewish learning institution, to the Israeli army, and now the corridors of the Hebrew University. For many Israelis, army and university are necessary hurdles before starting a career, but for Benny, they were the proud beginning of his new life. We're here at the entrance to Mea Shearim, which is the oldest and most well-known ultra-Orthodox neighborhood in this country. It's of course one of many such neighborhoods in this land. And the immediate giveaway to the nature of this place are the different signs. Not only do they have a different set of rules for themselves, but they expect you as the visitor to abide by those rules. Only exposed to religious education, many ultra-Orthodox never developed the skills needed to survive in the vast secular world surrounding them. When Benny ventured out, he didn't know where his wanderlust would take him, but he knew the road would be tough.
I'm in a preparatory course because I learned in ultra-Orthodox institutions, and there you only learn Jewish law. I didn't learn any of the subjects like math, Hebrew, economics. I'm filling in all the material I didn't learn growing up.
But Benny takes it all in stride. Rather than feeling bitter about the experience he missed, he embraces the challenge and adventure of discovering it all for the first time.
I looked at it as a type of obstacle I needed to overcome. An interesting challenge, and in my opinion, I dealt with it very well. I landed on my feet.
Benny had to detach from his upbringing to begin his studies at university, but after much effort and risk, he now enjoys the fruits of his labor, a good academic record, and involvement in a community-building initiative. But remnants of his past remain. Originally, he broke contact with his parents, but now they are once again in touch.
We're entering the neighborhood where I was born and lived until the age of 20. This is the street where I lived. That's my parents' home with the awning. That was my building.
Benny can look at his old stomping ground with peace, knowing he has found what makes him happy. But there are many who choose never to leave, seeing their isolation as serving the greater good of the Jewish people.
The Jews realize that when there is something attractive going on in the outside world, they're constantly at risk of becoming lost. We're the Jewish people to say, okay, we don't have to send them to Jewish schools. Let them all go to public school. Let us kind of integrate. There's not much debate over the fact that we only have a couple of generations left before the Jewish people no longer exist.
For Yoel and other religious teachers, self-segregation may play a role in preserving the Jewish people. But when it comes to losing one of the fold, he thinks it's pretty clear who's to blame.
If a young man leaves the fold, it's basically our fault. And everyone's approach is that all we have to do is show them love. Love and acceptance.
According to Hillel, an Israeli NGO that assists young people like Benny, the number of ultra-Orthodox leaving their neighborhoods for new horizons is growing. Hillel helps them adjust to their new life, providing valuable services and a new sense of community.
We meet them once they've left the Orthodox world. We don't convince them to leave. We help them, wherever we can, according to their needs. If it's going to the army, if it's education, basic education, and then higher education. We have social workers, we have psychologists.
Zivit says the number of young people contacting their organization each week is growing rapidly, and Hillel is not the only one of its kind. Such NGOs function as a buffer, building bridges between the confinements of a fundamentalist upbringing and the harsh realities of the world ahead. The struggles are very real, and the battle is uphill, but for young people like Benny, they couldn't imagine their lives any other way.